just start her?
Go for it.
I'll call this meeting to order. So before we get started, let's introduce everyone on this meeting. I'm Sandra Brock. When I call your name, please confirm you can hear me by verifying that you are present, starting with the commissioners. Patrick?
Present.
Alicia?
I'm here.
John?
Present.
And our staff conservation agent, Leah?
I'm here.
And I'll go through the speakers. They may not all be on yet, but I'll check. James Rhines. Doesn't look like he's here yet. Tom Lewis. Colin and Nicholas Frank. Not seen anyone yet. Glenn Krawowski. Nope. We have Paul here. Paul Macchiari. You'll have to excuse my pronunciation of your last name now that I've butchered it. If you can hear me, can you respond? Okay. We'll have to try that again. Jean Christie.
I can hear you.
Great, thank you. And Matt Welter. Okay, do not hear anything from Matt. And then we have a couple of people not signing in until 8. So this open meeting of the Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely via Zoom, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to COVID-19. The order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location and encourages public bodies to hold meetings remotely with reasonable public access. Access information for the public is provided on the town website. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. As chair, I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. Please note that you will not have screen sharing privileges, but staff can display any visuals per your cue. After speakers conclude their remarks, I will invite each commissioner by name to provide any comments, questions, or motions. After the commissioners have spoken, I will allow the public comments to be typed in by participants in the chat feature. And anything typed in the chat feature needs to be addressed to everyone, not any sole individual. Public comments will be followed by commission and applicant responses. Finally, each vote taken will be conducted by a roll call vote. Okay, so it is 7:08. Action items, Leah, that we can take care of. Looks like we've just got 2 of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so as far as the meeting minutes, does anyone have any comments or suggested revisions? And those meeting minutes are from May 4th. Seeing no comments or questions, do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from May 4th.
Second.
We have a motion and second. We'll do a roll call vote. Alicia.
Yes.
John.
Yes. Patrick. Yes.
I am also a yes. The motion carries. Request for certificate of compliance.
So this one is an old order for a property we're going to hear a new filing for tonight. So under this old order, no work ever started. They're just looking to clear it out.
Okay. So do I have a motion to that effect?
I make a motion to issue the certificate of compliance for 4 Autumn Harvest Court.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second. I will do a roll call. Alicia.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
I am also a yes. The motion carries. So we did meeting minutes. We did the 2 action items. Discussion items on the presentation, or is that should wait, or is that going to wait till 8?
Yeah, correct. That's for later.
Okay.
We do have a. Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. We do have a resident who wanted to talk to you guys He's in the attendees now. I can promote him to a panelist if you'd like, so he can talk if you think it fits now. He has some questions about wetlands in his backyard.
Sure. We have 5 minutes to the next one, so why don't we try to see if we can answer his questions in that time?
Okay, he's listed in here twice, so I'm gonna hit allow to talk on both. Hopefully he can hear us and unmute and talk. If not, you can type in the chat if that's what works.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Is this William Harris, or do you go by Bill?
I go by a lot of things, but normally it's Bill.
All right. Please, you have the floor. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask us.
Thank you, folks. I appreciate your time. I'm also joined by my wife, Clara Harris, and we live at 99 Old Westboro Road. And the concern that I have is that I'd spoken with the commission this morning, and we have some, I checked on the GIS maps and it didn't show wetlands, and this is what prompted the phone call to the commission to find out if behind my property, which is on the loop to, what's the road behind us? It's a farm road right across the street from the ranch, not too far from the Mass Pike overpass on Old Westboro. But the thing is that since we moved here in 2015, there's been a very slow seepage of water coming up onto our land. And I do have some pictures taken from 2016 from an overhead view where, okay, if you look there from number 21, that is the small garden behind my land. Now, what it is now is that the land is taken the water has pretty much started to seep up, and it's been narrowed down, heading down towards the other end of the road where there is a collection point for the water. But I don't know if there's a natural dam in there or is there what. But I would like to see if I could have a landscaper come in and just put some fill in to keep the water from slowly climbing up onto my property, trying to clean the shed that I have. If you look off to the upper semi-left, right above the number 21, that's my shed, to hopefully fix the problem. My wife and I discussed we do not want to go into the wood line at all. We'd rather leave the trees there because they're actually quite beneficial in soaking up a lot of the water.
And privacy.
And privacy, of course. But we would like to get the town, the commission's view. And again, I have pictures on just having a local landscaper come in who would put in some fill and
Drain.
just, yes, a very small drain, and to focus the water heading downstream towards the collection point at the end of the road. I think we're looking south, looking down the south end of the road.
Leah, is this GIS, is that a GIS wetlands or is it mapped something else?
So this is the
The
little
site.
stream that goes through. I have to click off the parcel for you to see it better. It's
Oh,
right
okay.
here.
Oh, I gotcha.
Now, back there is a stream, and it's an active stream that comes from the north, the edge of the road. I believe it curves off to the semi-right. There's property up there at the corner, and that's where, I don't know if it originates, or is that a spring that it originates from, or is it from another source? There you go, the one with the pool up in the corner there.
Gotcha.
Right where the corner of that property is, there's been some work done, and of course the water is being pushed down, which is natural. But again, the problem is that the water is backfilled, and it's, as you can see,
Well, our shed has some damage now from the water. You can see, the shed.
Yeah, first I'd like to say thank you for coming in front of us, because obviously this is our jurisdiction. Now we can certainly try to give you guidance as far as what you need to do as far as jurisdictional based on some of the information we have here, but maybe if we were to do a site visit or something, it's hard to tell from this just how flat that area and how much water it gets. Just because that area is shown as being a wetland on some of the Massachusetts GIS maps, and there's basically some sort of, whether it's an intermittent stream or some other stream coming through there, it depends upon how it is defined under the Wetlands Protection Act. So you may just be in what's called a buffer zone. And if that's the case, then, you could do a fairly easy process to do some fill if you're in that area, especially if you're staying outside of the buffer zone or you're just in the outer part of the buffer zone. And we can certainly help with that. I think the first thing, Leah, do you know this area at all and what happens downstream at where the wetlands kind of discharge underneath the road?
I do not. I just got this call this morning.
Okay. So one of the things, I'm just looking at it to see, how it all flows down. And so I just want to make sure there's nothing's happening that's causing either a backup or additional water to come down that's impacting your property, because that means it's also impacting the site. So there's a few different things that we can recommend to you, but I think one thing that we could do is just to go out to your site to get a better idea. Do you have the photos that that Bill brought in or sent to you, Leah?
They haven't been sent to me. I don't
Okay.
have them.
All right.
Well, I have them here on my computer. I'm not sure exactly how to import them to you.
Yeah, it's the way the Zoom is set up. We can't let you share. It's
Okay.
just, it's because of the type of system it is. So, so I guess to me, I'd give you kind of the kind of the steps that we'd want to do is first to establish what the resource areas are underneath the Wetlands Protection Act, because that's going to tell you what you need to do with this commission. So the Conservation Commission basically, enforces and is the permitting authority for the Wetlands Protection Act and the local wetland bylaw in Grafton. So that's our jurisdiction. So the first thing we need to do is help you get you direction to see if you actually fall within our jurisdiction. If you do not, which I don't think, I think some part of your site probably does, your lot does, but if you did not fall in our jurisdiction, you could add the fill without you coming to us. If you're within a certain distance to the wetlands resource areas, there's a 100-foot buffer zone, and that 100-foot buffer zone is a jurisdictional area. So you may have to do what's called the request for determination of applicability. And I'm sorry, this is going to get filled with lots of initials and everything. And that's a fairly straightforward permit just to let us know what you're doing in the not actually in the resource area or the wetlands. You're doing it in your backyard, but you're close to it, so we want to protect it so you don't have erosion going into it. And that's a fairly straightforward. If that stream in the back was a perennial stream, which I don't think so, because it's what's called a first order stream, and it doesn't look like it has a watershed for it. If it's a perennial stream, then there's a different resource associated with that. So kind of the first step is just to figure out if you're in the jurisdiction. So Leah, is that something that you could just go out to the site and take a quick look, obviously not delineate anything, but just get a sense of what's going on out there so we can advise, the homeowner that these are the next steps, and they'll have to get it delineated, or if they're far enough away from it, maybe just an RDA without a delineation.
Yeah, I'd also be curious to see the photos. I did check USGS. It's definitely not perennial.
Right. I didn't think so based on what you showed. So what we'd like to do is have our agent go out and take a look at it so that we know a little bit more information about it. And then we can give you more information on what you can add the fill to your yard. It's just the permit process you need to go through. And so we just want to make sure that what you're doing isn't for some reason impacting the wetlands. And it's just making sure it's done according to the regulations. And I think, as a homeowner, part of what the commission does is, we're here to service, to help out the local, residents in Grafton. So, this is something that Leah would go out, take a kind of look at it, take some photos, and then we can give you kind of advice on the next steps. And that could be a wide variety.
Roger. I'd like to see if I can get a time and date group as to when Leah will be able to come out and take a look. I mean, it's, again, I've been back there several times, and during the summer months, the drier months, there's almost like a pencil thin stream back there. But of course, when the winter months set in and you get buildup of snow, et cetera, and I'm willing to bet that there is probably a blockage somewhere downstream from leaves and natural debris that's causing a backlog in the water. So if Leah would be kind enough to supply a time and date group to where we can expect her over to come over and take a look at the property, I'll be here on standby, ready to go. And again, I can't stress this enough. I absolutely do not want to go beyond the tree line, because again, the trees are essential to keeping the water somewhat abated, because they obviously pull up a lot of the wet.
Yeah. And just from this very cursory look at what your site is and looking at what's going on, I don't think you'll have, an issue with what you want to do, but I also think you may find out that what's causing some of the water to back up may be something downstream, like you had mentioned, leaves and stuff like that in a pipe or something. It'd be a lot easier if that's the case, is whoever owns that pipe, whether it's the town or someone, is to have maintenance on that, so you don't end up altering your yard. But again, let's have a look at your site, just so that we can get a better idea and kind of help you on the next steps. So
Please and thank you, if you would. And again, it's we still would like to proceed with just putting some fill in there. That would prevent any further buildup if there is one.
And that's your choice. And again, it's just, but let's just get you out there. And if you can follow up tomorrow and just give a call to Leah to, so you guys can coordinate a time. And then based on what Leah sees, we can kind of give you kind of the next steps, so that you can make sure whatever you're doing is you're complying with the regulations that we're responsible for.
Roger that. My landscaper, the gentleman I called in, he said you definitely need to check with the commission. So this is what's prompting to this location.
Yep. So let's see what we can do to help you out, and then give you some directions, and next meeting or something, depending upon what Leah sees, we'll give you some directions on the next steps. So.
Yes, ma'am. Leah, so what time is a good time for me to make contact?
Oh, you're gonna call it tomorrow, buddy.
Yeah, what time?
Leah, when are you in
I'm
the office?
sorry, it's difficult to hear him. What's the question?
Just when would be a good time for him to check in with you, tomorrow or whenever?
Just call the office tomorrow and we can schedule from there. I've got to look at what my calendar looks like.
Okay.
Understood.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Okay, so first public hearing. Okay. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Grafton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a request for determination of applicability for the installation of a new utility pole near 137 Worcester Street. Who's here for Mass Electric?
My name is Lori McDonald. I'm filling in for Mike Toohill. I'm a senior environmental scientist with Conoco Engineers and Scientists, and I'm representing Mass Electric.
Very good. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Okay. Can I have a plan? Okay. So this project is for the installation of a new utility pole, a guy wire anchor, and overhead wires connecting to another utility pole located about 70 feet north of the proposed location. This utility pole is going to service a new Mass DOT I-90 message sign, which will be installed by others. So I don't know if you can see right here. I don't have access to my mouse, right? So I can't things. that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so left of the word underpass, you'll see there's like a circle with a line on each side of it. That's the location of the new pole. And that's approximately 25 feet from the back of the sidewalk. I don't know if you can see Worcester Street sidewalk. The word is right near the word utility pole, 25 feet from the sidewalk. So the new pole is going to be about 25 feet off the sidewalk and within 100 feet of an intermittent stream that flows from the west. From the east to the west. So it's going from the east to a 36 RCP head wall culvert underneath the Route 140 roadway, to the other side of the roadway, daylighting and continuing down west along the bottom of I-90 westbound slope. The current channel is actually a paved channel within the project area on both sides of the road. The utility pole is going to be installed in a previously disturbed area within the I-90 right-of-way. I don't know if you have photos, but you can see if you open up the photos, it's a very disturbed area. The utility pole location is to the right of this photo, kind of like in the back of where the car is, right near the fence line. There's a stake. I don't know if you can zoom in a little bit to the right. Maybe zoom in a little bit more. There, the stake is right there. There's this little, looks like, yes, right there. There's the stake. So it's a disturbed right away, sparsely vegetated with grass, kind of like bare soil in a lot of location. Utility pole, guy wire, and anchor will be installed in that location. And the intermittent stream is on the other side of this chain link fence. I don't know if you can see the chain link fence here. If you can point to the chain link fence, the stream is on the other side of the chain link fence, approximately 75 feet from the proposed utility pole location. If you have any other pictures showing the stream itself. Do you have more pictures than this one? I think they're further down. So here's the stream on the other side of the fence. And as you can see, it's in a paved channel flowing from west to east. And there's a concrete head wall right near the orange barrel. So it's flowing towards the barrel, towards the proposed utility pole underneath the roadway and the general location of the utility pole to the other side of Worcester Street. And this particular stream is not shown on a USGS quadrangle. There's no line at all shown on the quadrangle. It appears to be in an intermittent stream. We didn't evaluate it during the summertime. We were only able to do it in the fall during flow. Here's the culvert, and there's the barrel. Behind the barrel, approximately 75 feet away towards Worcester Road, is the location of the new pole. And if you can go back to the plan. So the guy wire, I don't know if you can see the guy wire. I'm sorry, the proposed overlet head wire is going to be from this new pole north to U pole 85, 75 feet approximately north of the proposed pole. And all the work is generally going to be constructed with all the equipment on the shoulder, the previously impacted shoulder, or from the pavement itself within the right of way. And once the utility pole, the equipment that's going to be used will be a hydraulic auger. An auger will come into the site, will fill out the soil, and then another truck will come in and pack in the pole, and then soil will be reinstalled around the pole, tapped in, and then the line will be hooked up with a bucket truck from U-Pole 85-1 to 85. During construction, obviously best management practices will be used. Fiber rolls will be installed if necessary. The area will be returned to pre-construction conditions. And if there are any catch basins within the area, they will be fitted with silt sacks. Another thing to note is this particular stream, the head wall, is actually upslope from the proposed utility pole. So if there were to be any runoff, the runoff would move from the utility pole towards Worcester Street itself. So at this point, are there any questions? Oh, the project will be constructed in summer 2022. That's the anticipated construction date. Are there any
Okay.
questions?
All right, thank you. I'll take care of that. So first thing we'll do is do a roll call of the commissioners and see if there's any questions. So Alicia, do you have any questions on this?
I do not have any questions. It sounds pretty straightforward.
John, do you have any questions?
No questions.
And Patrick, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay. I know, Leah, you had some comments in your report that, obviously the pole's within 75 feet of the intermittent stream. Under the local bylaw, we do have exceptions for maintenance and replacement, but not new installs. But we'll continue on and talk about it. Also, which is a good comment from the interdepartment meeting, the engineering department just wanted to remind the applicant that, Worcester Street is owned and maintained by MassDOT. So the town doesn't have jurisdiction, which just basically means any access permits, you're going to need to get it through the state through, this is actually their project, correct?
Correct. Yes, it's Mass
Okay.
DOT's project. We're installing the pole per their request so that they can
Okay.
hook up their message sign.
It is so the pole's going in, the new line to that new pole is going to be overhead.
Correct. Yeah, so there may be a need for trimming some vegetation, just branches if they're in the way of the line.
Yep. And then when it goes from the new pole to the new sign, is that also overhead?
I am not sure. That's Mass DOT's.
It's not part of this project, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I
Yeah.
just want to make sure that, Leah, that we note it, that, any connection from this pole to the sign is just not included in this submission. And that's, really has no bearing on what we're talking about now. We just want to have a reminder that if they come in and they have to do something underground, that's really all I'm worried about. But that's not part of this RDA. So we don't have to discuss it basically. So having done that, Leah, is there anything else that we should know or think about as far as conditions?
The only condition that I suggested was that the BMPs that were detailed in the application be implemented as needed. And I just, for a point of clarification, for my second bullet point in my report, that was just an FYI for you guys.
Yep.
Our bylaw provides exemptions for a lot of utility stuff like
Right.
maintenance, replacement of things, not new installs. So that's why you're seeing this.
Yeah. Yep. I understand that. And this is a little different because it's actually a MassDOT project. So, and it's on MassDOT property. So it's could also be exempt from the bylaw too. But but I think, based on what this submission is, we don't really need to go there. I would like to now open it up to the public. If anyone is listening and has any questions or comments, please use the chat feature and, type in and make sure you go to all participants if you have any questions on this particular RDA. Okay. All right. So any other questions? Go around real quick one more time. Alicia,
Nope, no questions.
John,
No questions.
Patrick.
No questions.
All right. And so do we have a motion to close the hearing and issue a negative?
Yep, I make a motion to close the hearing for Worcester Street near 137. And issue a negative determination with the condition that the BMPs, detailed in the application shall be implemented.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
So a motion and a second. Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Alicia,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. The motion carries. So good luck.
All right, great. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay. All right. Okay, so moving on. If I can get my thing to work. Okay. Okay, here we go. 7:30. Okay, I need to go back to here. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, the Grafton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a request for determination of applicability for confirmation of wetland resource area boundaries along the Providence and Worcester Railroad right-of-way in Grafton. The applicant is, so who's here to speak to this RDA for the Providence and Worcester Railroad?
So that's Tom Lewis. He signed on a little bit after you were checking people's microphones. So
Okay,
we just need to make sure he can speak and we can hear him.
okay. So Mr. Lewis, can you hear us and are you ready to do your presentation?
He did also email that he is attending another town's meeting and he might be a little late. So there's a chance he signed on just to hold his place.
Gotcha. So should we just continue it to a later time today or should we
Sure.
just, okay.
Yeah.
So do I have, let's see what time it's 7:37. Well, we actually can't go to the next hearing anyways.
Do
Do we have any continuous?
Right, we could take a continuance in the meantime.
Okay, could I have a motion to actually, how do I say it, is continue this hearing until 8:15 and then we'll take care of all the other hearings.
I make a motion to continue this hearing until 8:15.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Roll call vote. John,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
and I'm also yes. So this meeting is temporarily continued until 8:15, and so we'll move on to the continuances. So I'll read the first one in. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a notice of intent application for Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw permit for the replacement of a culvert on Fitzpatrick Road over Cronin Brook. The applicant has requested a continuance to June 15th. Oh, wow. I'm sorry. The June just threw me off. That is actually going to be June. So sorry. So do I have a motion to continue this hearing to June 15th?
I make a motion to continue the hearing for the project on Fitzpatrick Road over Cronin Brook to the June 15th meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll do roll call vote. John,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
I am also a yes, the motion carries. All right, next one, the other continuance for 8 and 100 Pine Street. Do we have folks here for that? And do we have time to kind of do that in 5 or so minutes, or should we hold out on that?
So we do have folks here. I don't know how long they are going to need, so they can answer that question.
And who is here for 8 and 100 Pine Street?
That's me, Jean Christie, Senior Engineer with Ty and Bond.
Okay,
We don't have a whole lot to present. I think there was one discussion item really, but I can update the commission on a few things, some of the outstanding things we have with you folks.
okay, so let me just do a quick opening of the hearing, and let's see if we can rock and roll on it. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act and Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Grafton Stormwater Management Bylaw, the Grafton Conservation Control Public Hearing to act upon a notice of intent, an application for Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw permit, application for Stormwater Management Bylaw for construction of residential retail at 8 and 100 Pine Street. There you go. We are open, so.
Okay, well, it's nice to see you all again. I know we owe you all a few things. I'm here tonight with Matt Wilter from GSX ODG, the applicant. We owe you a couple things. I did provide a revised phasing plan to Leah this morning. So I know no one's seen it, but we can discuss it at a later date if we want. What we've done is we went back with the general contractor for the development and really talked about how this whole thing was going to get built and what the phasing actually really will look like and where we'll be accessing the site and stuff. So this plan now reflects a more tuned phasing scheme. It looks like it's kind of difficult to read, so I might provide you with a new one that's not so awkward looking. If that's okay with everybody, I could probably provide that to you tomorrow because this one does look a little confusing now that I'm seeing it on the screen. But generally what the biggest, we included areas of disturbance for each phase as requested. And that's in the notes down at the bottom. I do know, I want to point out that one phase, the largest phase, is the construction of the residential parking garage and the building, and that's about 6.5 acres. So I know that's kind of bigger than our 5-acre goal. But I do want to remind the commission that, you know, once that's cleared and we get the foundation in for the residential building, we only have about 1.5 acres of disturbed earth outside of that. So once, you know, that concrete's down for the parking garage and the building foundation slab, substantially less disturbance will be open as part of that particular phase. So I know you haven't seen that yet. I do want you to digest it before I can really, you know, talk more about it, unless anybody had any specific questions right off the bat.
I do not. I'll do a roll call afterwards. So please keep on going.
Okay. Next thing is, I know you're looking for an authorization or acknowledgement from DCAM for work on their property. I can, you know, we did meet with DCAM on site last Thursday, and we know that a letter is in the works. That it's going to be a co-signed letter between DCAM and Job Corps. It was probably the easiest dealings with DCAM I've ever had. Of all the projects I've ever done, they're like, this is great because we're, you know, acknowledging that there's impacts to their property. So that will be coming. I expect that will be coming in the next week or so. Next thing is the peer review. I did connect with Graves Engineering earlier today. They are looking to get, you know, the next round of peer review comments out the end of this week, early next week. I am going to try to connect with Jeff Walsh one-on-one and see if he has any questions, if there's anything we can do to give him more information to kind of speed up this process a little bit. And I think that kind of leads into the next piece, which is kind of a time crunch that we're starting to look at. And Matt can fill in some of the blanks here as I need it, but we're looking to abate and demolish the existing buildings the end of June. And that has like a 3 to 5 month duration. So when we look at like the next hearing dates and continuing until June 15th, we start to get a little concerned about, if we're going to be able to have an order of conditions in time to do that. And Leah, if you can pull up the site plans in the existing condition plan, I can kind of show you what area we're looking at. We don't want to presume that we can demolish the building without the order of conditions, just because we are proximate. The building is proximate to the 100-foot buffer zone. But we also know that we can't build anything without the stormwater permit as well. So I did kind of want to open up to discussion with the commission. What are your thoughts on separating the notice of intent and the stormwater kind of permits if the peer review continues? I expect the peer review can be completed by June 15th, that hearing. But we're concerned if we zoom in where the building meets the buffer, if that makes sense. Yeah, so that area is also the area where we need to do some soil abatement. We'll be doing some soil management in that area. So I don't want to assume that we'll stay out of the buffer zone, just because it's kind of close. And, I don't want to just assume we can do that work. So wanted to get the commission's thoughts on that.
Sorry, just unmuting. So why don't we go around real quick? I have a couple of questions on that, but Alicia, do you have any questions on that specific question?
I don't at the moment, no.
John?
No, I do not.
And Patrick?
No, nothing yet. Nothing right now.
Okay. So as far as kind of my questions go, so you have a single notice of intent at the moment to do basically all your work, and how you want to kind of divvy it up is up to you. And if you're talking about doing like enabling or demolition or early site package or even the soil abatement, and especially for certain portions of that work, to do maybe an RDA or something. So, and again, it's a little bit difficult for us to give you like an approval on a portion of an NOI that hasn't been approved. But Leah, tell me if I'm going down the wrong path here, but if you wanted to do an RDA and just get that one area, especially if you're just in the buffer zone or if you're just outside the buffer zone, you could do that as an RDA, as in kind of an enabling. I'm just giving you a suggestion. I don't know if that's what you'd like to do or not. I guess my concern is that because we're looking at everything, it'd be pretty hard for us to kind of say, go ahead and demo the building, but we don't want to stop you from doing it. It's just because it's grouped in with the other, parts of this project that it makes it hard.
Right.
And again, if you, I guess the question, Leah, if you could bring up the plans, if it would be reasonable to do an RDA for the demo of the building, I guess is one question. As far as the remediation work, it sounds like you're probably outside of the buffer, but you might want to cover yourself. I mean, I guess it's kind of the strategy that you want to do that really helps you with your kind of upfront enabling work. And
Right. We don't want to be, get to the point where we need to start demoing the building, but not be able to do it because we don't have our order yet.
Right.
So I guess, my question was probably more about, can you segregate the stormwater permit from the NOI? Does the town ever, condition one permit on another?
Good question, because the issue that you're going to run into is when you go pull a building permit and you don't have the stormwater permit in hand.
But what we don't need the stormwater permit for the building demo.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think I don't know, Leah, if you've seen that done with an enabling package, a demo package.
So I actually have a different question. So you're looking for the two to be separate because the demolition work is over an acre itself. So you're wondering is that what you're getting at? To
Not,
have the stormwater separate?
no, I think that the demo is really, the interior abatement work, the actual structure demolishing, and then some soil work down near that little wetland, the wetland finger, the buffer zone there. It's definitely over an acre of land, I believe. But I don't think that was where my head was. So that's actually a really interesting twist on that. Okay.
So,
I don't
because
know.
the reason I bring that up is because when I issue an order and bylaw permits under both bylaws, they all get the same set of special conditions attached to them. So whether I'm working on one or all three, it's the same set of conditions I'm typing up. So separating one from the other two isn't exactly going to accelerate anything. If you were to need to do an RDA for a subset of work to go to the June 15 meeting, you'd still be looking at June 15 to get a motion on that and then the document issued after. Do you have a more precise idea of the date in June that you're shooting for?
I defer to Matt on that one.
So we don't have a specific date in June, but one of the issues that we're running into is being able to get on a lot of the demolition contractor schedule. And so without having, at least kind of a clear path or some visibility towards an approval date, it's difficult to commit to them on a date certain. So that's a little bit of kind of a circular reference. And we want to make sure that we don't miss this construction season and be able to get them on the schedule for, at least a late June or early July start date.
Yeah, and for me, it's more about the process that you would go through and how to kind of segregate it. I guess I'm a little stumped on, trying to take a portion of something that's under review and giving you approval to start. But I don't have any problem if you want to slice something off and maybe just do like an RDA so you can have permission to do that. And then, once you get to, the full size one, it's just work that's already been done under another permit. It's not going to slow it down, but it gives you a vehicle to do it in that process. So that would be, and again, I think we're not looking to slow you down, but we just got to make sure that we, you know, um, issue the permit so that it's whole. But there's nothing that says you can't do multiple permits, I guess is my offer to you to say, you can be somewhat creative in doing that because it still falls under the same, project. It's now we're just kind of giving you almost like a phasing plan or something, again, that would be my suggestion on a potential way of taking care of that.
And we know that the actual site construction isn't going to start until the building is, completely demolished and soils are all managed and such. So, that's still, looking at a 6 month from now,
Right.
Construction start for site work. So I think, Matt, unless you object, we can obviously discuss it tomorrow and come up with a plan of attack of what we want to do. But I appreciate that the offer for the RDA.
Absolutely.
And that you can't segregate it. And I'm sorry, the airplanes are really loud in my house.
Just a bit, huh?
So I think that's all I had to update the folks with.
I got to ask, is that a military?
I can't hear anything.
Oh, okay. Is that military or not like a?
It's Barnes Air Force. Yep, there.
Okay, I was just guessing because they're kind of circling. Okay, so I mean that's it. Other than that, you would like to get a continuance to the next hearing on June 15th?
Yep, and I think we'll try to get some of the peer review wrapped up as best we can by then.
Yep. Leah, anything else? Otherwise, I know we're waiting on peer review stuff, so.
Right. Just if you do decide to do an RDA, that deadline is next Tuesday, I believe.
Okay.
To make the June 15 meeting, if that's the route that you choose, and that's all I have.
Okay, great. Do I have a motion to continue this hearing to June 15th?
I make a motion to continue the hearing for 8 Pine Street to the June 15th meeting.
Do I have a second? Got a motion and a second, and we'll do a roll call. John,
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Alicia?
Yes.
I am also a yes. Good luck, and you know, you can make a decision how you want to split it up. So, all
Okay,
right,
That's
thanks.
nice.
Thank you.
All right, next up. So let's go back to 7:45. Okay. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a request for determination of applicability for the replacement of a footbridge at 12 George Hill Road in Grafton. So who is here to discuss that? And if you're on mute, yep.
So good evening. My name is Nick Frank and my son Colin here. We live at 14 George Hill Road, and we have asked for consideration of this project as the bridge that is currently in place there is beginning to rot and is in need of replacement. And my son Colin is getting ready to plan his Eagle Scout project. So we thought this would be an excellent Eagle Scout project, but we weren't sure of the permissions required for such a project. And so that's how we ended up in this place.
All right. Thank you very much. And also thank you for, considering this to do as your Eagle Scout project. We love the Eagle Scouts. We take advantage, we benefit from it. So thank you very much. So Leah, you have on kind of the first thing on this is to take a vote to waive any of the application fees and so forth.
Yeah, I recommended taking a vote to waive the fees, seeing as it's a project that benefits one of the conservation properties and the town as a whole.
All right, so let's kind of first go through that. So I'll go a quick roll call on what commissioners feel on that. Alicia?
I think that's a great idea. I support that.
And Patrick?
Yeah, that seems appropriate.
And John?
Great idea.
All right, so you get the feeling from the way the commissioner, I agree with the rest of the commissioners. Do I have a motion to waive the application fees and to pay the legal fee, ad fee from the commissioner's budget for this project?
I make a motion to waive the application fee and to pay the legal ad fee from the commission budget for the project at 12 George Hill Road.
Do I have a second?
A second.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote. And so John, sorry, bad timing on my part.
Water right up my nose. Yes, absolutely yes.
Okay, and Patrick?
Yeah.
And Alicia?
Yes.
And I am also a yes, the motion carries. So that first part of the business was us saying that you don't have to pay us a fee because with the RDA, there's an application fee and there's my cat. He's so interested in this project, he decided to come up and actually listen in. So, and also that the Conservation Commission will pay for the legal ad for this RDA. So that's just the first part of it. So now we'll just get into just looking at how it impacts as far as the regulations and the RDA. Anything else that we need to do, Leah? I think another waiver.
Yes, so I'm just gonna pull up the photos one more time. If you guys are familiar with this, is the little footbridge that is towards the entrance to Great Meadow. So there's been some flooding and the beavers like to pile things next to it. And so they're looking to replace the bridge. So I did have a conversation with our peer reviewer just to make sure we had this going through the proper channels. He felt that as long as the proposed bridge is on the same footprint, which it will be above the flood elevation, which we have spoken about, the ability to raise it. So it will meet that as well. And it's outside the stream banks, which they are proposing to lengthen the bridge so that the footings are further away from the stream. So our peer reviewer felt that as long as it met those three criteria, a negative determination would be appropriate. So they did also need to request a waiver for work to occur within our 25-foot no disturb zone, just due to the nature of the project. I have also been in talks with DPW about being able to get their equipment across to do the mowing that they're going to be doing for us, because there is a field in the background of these pictures. So they are going to work with the scouts. They offered their help to move materials if that's needed, and they also support the idea of like approach ramps, if you want to call it that, to allow the mower to get across more easily.
Okay.
And that's all I had for background, other than potential special conditions.
So let's go through the waiver for to allow the work within 25-foot no disturb. The other part of that is should we also do a waiver at the same time for the fee for the waiver?
Say that again.
So so typically we have a fee if you request a waiver.
Oh, right. Yeah. Correct.
So we'll just group the waiver, the vote for the waiver and the fee for the waiver in one motion. So do I have a motion to grant the waiver to work within 25 feet of a wetland resource area? And in that same motion is to grant a waiver for the fee for that waiver.
I make a motion to grant the waiver to work in the 25-foot no disturb zone for the project at 12 George Hill Road, and also to waive the fee for that waiver.
Fabulous. I'll do a roll call vote. John?
Yes.
Patrick?
Did we need to second that motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes,
In which
thank
case I
you.
do second
Yes,
it.
so Patrick seconded it and John said yes. And so now we're back to Patrick. Sorry.
Yeah, yes.
Jumping ahead. And Alicia.
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. So the motion carries. All right. So as far as thank you, Leah, for the information on DPW. As far as special conditions go.
I had a few. One would be that the project will be coordinated with the DPW director, just to ensure that that mowing equipment can get across. Another is that all materials shall remain outside of the brook at all times. Any excess material and material from the old bridge shall be removed from the site. And then the last one is if you can notify the conservation office when you know the dates you're gonna want to do this work, we can help you put up trail closure signs.
So do you have any questions on those conditions? Those will be part of the permit.
No, they all sound very reasonable to us, and the coordination and the help from DPW will be appreciated.
Oh, absolutely great. I'll just go a quick roll call through the commissioners to see if you have any other questions or anything else to add to special conditions. John?
No, I don't have any other questions, but I think this is a great project and I salute you for doing this project. I think it's a great idea.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Patrick?
No other question. Just curious, is the bridge you're replacing it with kind of keeping with the similar design of what's there?
Yes, it's almost exactly the same except longer. The only difference is that there is no anchoring of the current bridge. And, in an extreme flood situation in the past, the bridge has actually shifted and is now really only supported by some large rocks. And so should they fall in, then the bridge would actually collapse. So So as part of this, by lengthening it, we're hoping to then anchor it as well so that it won't move.
Okay. Yeah, no, that sounds great. I don't have any other questions. I certainly appreciate it. My 2-year-old daughter goes over that bridge every few weeks probably, so she'll appreciate it too when it's done.
Alicia, any questions or comments?
Nope, I don't have any questions.
Okay, great. And for me, again, just thank you for this. It's you know, this is we really appreciate the scouts when they come and offer to do projects around the conservation lands. It's you know, it helps out. Hopefully you understand just how many, you know, like, you know, Patrick and his family, you know, it really helps the, you know, the folks in Grafton and those other people who come to our conservation lands to walk them and hike them. So thank you very much. So do you have any questions for us? Because what we're going to do next is do a vote, and you're going to hear us say that we're going to issue a negative determination. That's actually what you want, because that means you're done. A negative determination means you're all set. A positive determination means you have to go to another permit. So I just wanted to explain that. So do you have any other questions for us on this?
We do not. Thank you.
Okay, so do I have a motion to close the hearing, issue a negative determination with the special conditions?
There's something in the chat.
Oh,
so
I'm sorry. Thank you very much.
you might wanna. I'm on my iPad, so everything on Zoom is completely different than it is on a computer. So it pops
Okay.
up like I'm getting a message. So if you click on the chat, there's someone.
Okay, hold on a second. All right. So thank you, Alicia. I should have gone to the public to see if there's any questions. So so we have one person. So it's Johnny Carden, and I don't know, Alicia, excuse me, Leah, if you could promote him, because it's I'll read it out, and he's objecting. And the issue is safety, that he's a property owner for 8 George Hill Road in Grafton, and it's a narrow road. This update to the bridge will create more traffic volume to current access points to the conservation land. I have encroachment issues with vehicles parking illegally on my land, which abuts the access point to the conservation land. I have photos that support this. The most critical safety concern is that the current encroachment has created a safety concern for me and my family. The vehicles that illegally park on my path of the land, abutting the access point, conservation land, and create significant obstacle that impairs the ability of my family to safely exit my driveway. Perhaps, and then he makes a comment, perhaps Mr. Frank can offer the parking on his land at 14 George Hill Road. Where is the audience for this? Where's the hearing for this audience? Okay, so so if you could, Leah, promote him to our panelists so that we could actually talk to him. Oops, you're on mute.
Johnny, can you hear us?
Yes, sir, I can.
All right, thank you very much. So just a few things. So what's in so let me ask a question to you. How familiar are you with the wetlands permitting process? Because I'll explain a little bit to tell you what we're voting on, what's in front of us.
Please go ahead and let me know.
Yeah, that's great. So first of all, so what this is an isolated request for determination of applicability, and that's basically a process to gain permission to do work on a bridge that's in very poor condition. Your question and what you're asking is a little bit different because it's not specifically related to that safety issue that we have with that bridge. But your concerns and what's happening there is definitely a concern to the Conservation Commission. It's just not specifically related directly to this. So the first question for you, before we kind of discuss the parking issues, do you have any issues or any comments on the bridge portion that's in front of us as a request for determination?
None on the bridge. I think it's a great idea. I support it. I have issues with the result of that change, and I think that needs a deeper conversation.
Okay, so I appreciate that. And then so as far as you know, the illegal parking, this is not unfortunately uncommon at some of the conservation properties. There's not always a tremendous amount of parking there. you know, and those are things that, Leah, what typically if we get a complaint like that, how do we respond to that? Do we post and do we inform the police?
This might actually be the first one that's come to me.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess the key thing is that, you know, we don't want to just not take in your concerns and that you're having an issue there. But this is a little different than, this is kind of a different part of what we're responsible for. So we have the part where it's a wetland protection, which is specifically on the bridge to make sure nothing's done to harm the wetlands resource areas. Your issue has to do with the kind of the operation of conservation lands. And so that's also part of the things that we do look at and so forth. So Leah, is this property, is this town of Grafton? Or is this land trust? Who owns this particular property?
So Great Meadow is conservation specific. I'm gonna pull it up on a map. Just give me 1 second.
Okay.
So there's an area that I hiked a lot over the summer that is in Springfield that has a similar situation, very small parking area. And they're actually, the residents in that area had little signs. They were all uniform, so I don't know if they were provided by the local area, that just said, this is not parking for the conservation land. Police will, you know, police are aware.
Please take notice is usually this,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
wording. Yeah.
But they were like those little yard signs similar to like what you would put up if you were supporting a political candidate, but they were stuck in all the front lawns along this entire
Right.
street. So something like that might be an option in this situation if it does get that kind of heavy traffic.
Yeah.
Sure. No, that's great advice. You know, I was hoping that, you know, we could think bigger, right, in terms of, you know, long-term sustainability. As the, you know, I think the footpath is a great idea. It's going to get more traffic, and I think over the years as Grafton grows, that's going to continue to drive more volume and more attendance. But I noted, I will put up the signs, and I'll make sure that if there is violation of parking on my land, that you know, I'll just use the local authorities to enforce it.
Yeah, and please reach out to us. Obviously, you know, we want, you know, we like to promote the land as a resource for the town, and we want people to use it, but we want them to use it, you know, with respect. So not only the land, but the abutters. And so, you know, this may not have come up recently, but you know, the amount of parking and so forth, it's always a balance of, you know, making sure there's something available there, but we're not going to be putting in large parking lots either, because it typically doesn't warrant that. So it's a balance. So, you know, so if you could, you know, let the conservation office know about when people are having, you know, parking all over the place. I know on sometimes when I've done walks in the past, I actually rode my bike, so I wouldn't have to worry about my car. I mean, that was my choice. That was me being a little lazy, which sounds funny because I was on a bike, but it was my way of not having to worry about the parking situation.
And that makes sense. I appreciate that. And like I said, I bring it up primarily for that safety concern more than anything else. You know, it'd be really silly to get into an accident coming right out of your own driveway, right? On a scenic road.
Right. No, I appreciate that. And to be honest, that's what these public hearings are for, is to give people who are, you know, either directly or tangentially impacted. And this is a little bit different because it's more about the operation of the conservation land as opposed to this specific project. But we do want to hear this because we want to make those conservation lands, you know, available to people and that they can enjoy them. And part of that is our responsibility to make sure there's a balance of how much parking there is and so forth.
Wonderful. Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So I should have actually expanded out, but if there's anyone else in the public that has anything else to kind of write in, if you could use the chat feature to ask your question or give a comment. So appreciate that.
Sandy, the one thing that I'll add, and I know it looks like John, or I don't know, Johnny, if you're still on.
I am. Yes.
So one of the things that I've done is the police chief in town is an awesome resource for if there's things like this going on where there's just too many cars, they're crowding the road, the non-emergency line to the police, as well as reaching out directly to the police chief and saying, every weekend there's 20 cars here and it's blocking the road. He'll respond to that, and he'll, make sure that he tends to that with his officers, with his sergeants, with his staff. He's been awesome to deal with in my neighborhood with other issues, and he's definitely a resource that you could also tap to go in front of. There's the Traffic Safety Commission in town, I believe, which is one of our commissions in town that would potentially hear some comments on this if it becomes a continued issue.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Jonathan.
Just another couple resources for you.
I appreciate that. That's great. Thank you. Good to know.
All right. Seeing nothing else in the chat feature, do I have a motion to close the hearing and issue a negative determination?
I make a motion to close the hearing and make a negative determination for the project at 12 George Hill Road.
With the special conditions as noted.
With the special conditions as noted, that it will be coordinated with the DPW director to make sure that the town's mowing equipment can pass over the bridge, that all materials shall remain outside of the brook at all times. Any excess materials from the old bridge shall be removed from the site, and that the conservation office shall be notified regarding the dates of the project so that the staff can post trail closure signs.
Great. Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
We'll do a roll call vote. John.
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
Alicia.
Yes.
I am also yes, the motion carries. So thank you very much and good luck, and feel free to reach out to the office and Leah to help you coordinate things. So
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
all right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, so next up, 8 o'clock. All right. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a notice of intent and application for Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw permit for the construction of a single-family house at 4 Autumn Harvest Court. Who is here for that, Leah?
So we were expecting Glenn Kravosky. The owner is on here though.
He's on the line.
Which is Paul.
Oops, you're getting a little bit of a feedback there.
Paul, if you're speaking, we cannot hear you. It's very, very low.
Glenn's on the line.
Okay, he unfortunately is not listed unless he's listed under another name.
Are you talking about Glenn or Paul?
Paul's on and he's trying to communicate, but Glenn is not. I don't see Glenn's name here.
He
Is
just
he
wrote in
saying
the
he's
chat.
on the in physically with him?
He wrote in the chat that Glenn is on the line. I don't have anyone in the attendees list besides Tom Lewis.
He called in. He can hear you. So it's because he called in that it's coming up as a number?
There was a number before a few minutes ago. It's gone now, so
Okay.
He needs to call again.
Okay, here's someone coming in.
Glenn Kravosky, thank you.
All right, Glenn. Yeah, so please, you're up for Autumn Harvest Court.
Yes. And just came in from 3 other hearings in 2 different towns, so I apologize. And as you can see from the plan, and I'm sure your agent has looked at it and asked some questions, it's a single-family house with water and sewer. It had been permitted once before. There's a flow path if you're looking to the east. That we know that Grafton bylaw covers flow paths and it had been delineated in the past on the previous application. And then there is an intermittent stream with BVW on the west side of the project. We showed the 25-foot buffers that we're respecting on both sides. Single-family house, again, existing grades out of Douglas, did the work. We had to answer a few questions on water table, fees. I'm looking for the rest of my paperwork at this. And I believe your agent might say that we answered the questions that she asked. And that's the project.
All right, thank you very much. I'll do a quick roll call of the commissioners to see if they have any questions, and just to note that Leah did confirm that there is sewer department confirmed that the hookup is available. So I will go around, and also to note there was no DEP comments. So Alicia.
No questions. I looked through everything. It looks pretty straightforward.
All right, Patrick.
No questions.
And John.
No questions.
Okay. It does seem fairly straightforward with town sewer and water. You are staying outside the 25 foot.
Yes.
And probably, Leah, other than standard conditions, you know, signs and erosion and et cetera, any other special conditions?
No, I just had the standard ones.
Okay. I will open it up to the public. And so if there's anyone in the public attending that has any questions or comments, please use the chat feature, and please, just address to all all panelists. And I'll kind of wait for a moment on that one. I have no other questions. I'm just waiting a minute to see if anyone in the public says anything. Not seeing anyone. Do I have a motion to close the hearing and issue an order of conditions?
I make a motion to close the hearing for 4 Autumn Harvest Court and issue an order with the standard conditions.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll do a roll call vote. Alicia?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
I am also yes, and the motion carries. So you're all set. Thank you. And you might have just hit the record for a single family house.
Well, we
hearing.
do appreciate it very much. Thank you. It had been permitted. We appreciate that it appears to be cut and dry. We also appreciate the questions and requests for information from your agent, that we could put those questions to bed or get all the answers from my engineers in a timely manner. So again, I appreciate, and have a good rest of the week if this is it. Thank you, ma'am.
All right. Thank you. All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Okay. So,
I'm off Brookfield. Thank you. Bye.
okay. So, Leah, we just have to go back to, is it the
Back to
Providence
the
Worcester?
7 Yeah, back to the 7:30, and then we have our stormwater presentation.
Okay, so let me go back to the RDA for 7:30. I'll just open it up again. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetland Protection and the Grafton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a request for determination of applicability for confirmation of wetland resource area boundaries along the Providence and Worcester Railroad right-of-way in Grafton, Mass. So do we now have the person who will be talking to that?
Yes, I'm Tom Lewis. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you being flexible on your time. I was in another hearing.
Not a worry.
So as you mentioned, I'm here on behalf of the Providence and Worcester Railroad for their vegetation management. Just to provide a little bit of background, railroads in Massachusetts, they undertake their vegetation management under the rights of way regulations, which is administered by the Department of Agricultural Resources. So as part of that, they're required to have a vegetation management plan, which is a 5-year document. And the most recent one expired at the end of last year. So that's in the process of renewal. And as part of that renewal, they also have to go to each municipality and get a determination of the boundaries of the resource areas. So that's why I submitted my RDA. And obviously you have the map in front of you. And just as a little bit of description here, what all these colors mean. So you can see obviously the railroad track that runs through this area. Those numbers 33 and 34 are the mileposts that we use just to know where we are on the tracks. The purple boundary with the diamond shaped hatching in the middle, that's actually water supply zone 2 recharge area for public wells. So that's why it's shown with a dark blue on the tracks. We're only allowed to make an herbicide application there once every 2 years. The lighter blue is actually buffer zone, and that could be buffer zone to a riverfront, it could be a BVW, could be a certified vernal pool, but it's a buffer zone to some type of a wetland resource area. And then the areas that are not colored are actually upland areas. And the yellow areas are no spray. So there's actually a couple of no spray areas in here. The two right in the middle of the map, you can see those yellow circles, that's actually town wells. So those no sprays are not for wetlands, they're for water supply. And then over to the upper left side of the map, that's actually where the tracks cross the river. I guess it would be to the west of Pleasant Street. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I'll be glad to take any questions if you have them.
Sure. So whoops, got a little feedback. I will go around to the commissioners and see if they have any questions. Alicia?
Nope, I don't have any questions.
Patrick?
No questions.
And John?
No questions.
Yeah, I mean, as far as, just identifying locations of resource areas and so forth, I don't really have any questions on that. Leah, as far as next steps and kind of your report, what comments do you have here?
So I just wanted to make a note that this determination will last 5 years, the length of the vegetation management plan that Tom was speaking of. It is one time that a determination is not the standard 3 years. I also reached out to MACC for advice on this one. I didn't hear back from them. The reason I reached out was because the form for this one was filled out asking for delineation confirmation. But there were questions in the cover letter asking for other determinations to be made, but those were not checked as questions on the form. So I asked MACC's advice, like they had put out for the last one was the MBTA, I think.
Yep.
They didn't get back to me on that question, but for the question that's being asked about the delineation, specifically the data that's shown on their plan matches the data that's available to me. So I would support a positive determination agreeing with the delineation to directly answer the question that's asked.
All right. Any other questions from the commissioners? And Tom, do you have any other questions for us?
No.
Okay. So do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to close the hearing and issue a positive determination that's in agreement with the delineation.
And do we have a second?
Second.
We'll do a roll call vote. Alicia?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
I am also a yes. That means the motion carries, and good luck to you.
Thank you. Have a
All
good
right.
night.
All right, Leah, so where are we at? We've gone through all the public hearings, if I'm not missing one.
So I actually forgot one. We do need to open and continue 11 Wheeler, and then we're all set.
Okay, let me do that real quick. That's down the bottom here. All right, pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, and Grafton Stormwater Management Bylaw, Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a notice of intent application for Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw permit and application for Stormwater Management Bylaw permit for the development of a 6-lot subdivision at 11 Wheeler Road. The applicant has requested a continuance to June 15th. Do I have a motion for that continuance?
I make a motion to continue the hearing for 11 Wheeler Road to the June 15th meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Roll call vote. John?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Alicia?
Yes.
I am yes. Motion carries and the hearing is continued. Okay. Did I miss anything else?
No, we're just down to our presentation now. So I have been working with Sarah and Lauren from VHB on the updates that we have going to town meeting on June 5th for compliance with the Ms4 permit. They have helped me make sure we tick all our boxes. And then I reached out to them to give a presentation on what these new changes are going to mean, what they're going to look like for the commission. They put together a PowerPoint presentation, which I'm happy to kick off. I just hope it functions okay through Zoom.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you, Leah, and nice to virtually meet everyone. I'm Sarah Nalvin. I am a water resources scientist at VHB, and I'm here with Lauren Caputo, who will also be presenting. And we are going to talk to you about basically the Grafton Stormwater Bylaw and regulations, and what we've done to revise them recently, and how you can, sorry, I'm just trying to get my slides all ready to go. How we can expect to implement these bylaw updates once they get passed. I am going to, sorry, I'm going to be looking this way because that's where my large monitor is. So sorry, I'm not looking. I hate virtual presentations, but sorry, I'm going to look this way. Leah, you can go to the next slide if you want. Thank you. So basically what we're going to talk to you about today is start by talking about just a little primer on stormwater and the Ms4 permit, just give you some background on that. Next, we're going to talk about Grafton's stormwater bylaw and regulations, and just generally what the content is in there, and what updates we've made in the last year. And then Lauren will take over and talk about implementation of these regulations, what kind of design changes you might expect to see with the new revisions, and also she's going to walk through an example project so that you can really get a sense of what things might look like, and that could kind of open things up for discussion if we can elaborate on certain concepts. All right, next slide. So to start off, we're going to talk about stormwater, why it's important, and the Ms4 permit. So next slide. So stormwater, it's pretty simple. It's water from rain and snowmelt that flows over land, and it especially flows over impervious surfaces. So it's largely an issue in urbanized areas. So you can see in the picture up top, you've got your woods, and there's not much stormwater runoff happening there. The water infiltrates into the ground, but once you pave over that kind of surface, you get water running off to basically overland until it makes it to the nearest water body or a storm drain. Next slide. So when stormwater runs over land, it carries a lot of pollution with it, as you all probably know.
Yeah. So just a heads up, you got a pretty sophisticated commission here.
Yeah.
So maybe take it up a notch.
Okay, cool.
Um,
We wanted to really start with the basics just to make sure everyone was on the same page. But if you are completely all set, I mean, we have 2 slides on stormwater basics and then we're moving
Okay.
on. Basically, as you know, lots of stormwater pollutants. Thank you, though. That's helpful because we didn't have a good context for who we were talking to.
Right.
So stormwater carries a lot of pollutants to waterways, as you can see. Next slide. And that causes a lot of problems. So you get poor water quality, which has issues for aesthetics, recreation, habitat. You get flooding, you get erosion. And I don't know if you all know this, but actually all of Grafton drains to a water body that is impaired for phosphorus. So no matter, Grafton's in several different watersheds. Some water drains to the Blackstone, some drains to the Merrimack, but no matter where it goes, it's all draining to a water body that has too much phosphorus in it, according to the Department of Environmental Protection. So it is really important, especially in Grafton, that we work on reducing stormwater pollution. So next slide. So I don't know how familiar you are with the MS4 permit. That's where I also wanted to give some background. So MS4, maybe you already know this, stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. So basically, it's an MS4 includes your whole storm sewer system. So your catch basins, manholes, pipes, culverts, etc. So Grafton, because Grafton owns an MS4, Grafton has to have an MS4 permit, which is a federal permit under the Clean Water Act that basically has a number of stipulations that Grafton complies with to prevent the adverse impacts of stormwater to water bodies. So next slide. So there's a lot of different things that Grafton has to do under the MS4 permit, but one of those is implementing bylaw, a stormwater management bylaw and associated regulations. And so that's what we're talking about today. Basically, this stormwater management bylaw, it regulates construction sites and then also what happens to those sites after construction and makes sure the stormwater runoff, once that site is fully developed, is also not causing downstream impacts. Next slide. So to get a little more into the specifics of your stormwater management bylaw and regulations, so the basics, that have always been in place is it's Article 36, as you probably already know. The stormwater bylaw applies to all land disturbance over 40,000 square feet or 1,000 cubic yards, or if a project is part of a common plan that disturbs that much land. It applies to anywhere in Grafton, so that's where things might get confusing. The wetland protection, like the wetland stuff, only applies to wetland resource areas, but this bylaw applies to all of Grafton. So even if you're in an upland and you're trying to develop a site, you still have to comply with all the provisions in these regulations. And then, like I mentioned earlier, the bylaw and regulations focus on regulating sites during construction and after construction. And then the other thing I should have mentioned here, but failed to put on the slide, is the Stormwater Authority listed in the bylaw is the Conservation Commission. So you are responsible for enforcing this bylaw. All right, next slide. So just to give you a little more of a sense of what's in it, what's always been in it, there's a lot of provisions regulating construction. So making sure sediment and erosion control is in place, requiring the proper disposal of waste from construction sites. And then there's enforcement procedures. So you all have the authority to inspect these sites to make sure that they are in compliance with your regulations and give penalties if they're not. Next slide. And then the post-construction piece also has a number of requirements. So one requirement is that projects comply with all the standards in the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection Stormwater Handbook. But then there's also, so that's like, making sure runoff rate after development is the same as before development, making sure pollutant loads after development are pretty good and not, causing way more pollution than before development. The regulations also require low impact development, which we'll talk about a little more later. You've got to submit your as-built plans. You've got to do operations and maintenance. There's a number of provisions around what happens after construction. All right, next slide. So the last thing I wanted to talk about is just what has changed in this bylaw and these regulations in recent months, or what will be passed after town meeting. So the MS4 permit, the most recent MS4 permit came out in 2018, and that required that Grafton make certain updates to your bylaws and regulations to make things more stringent. And so one thing that changed is there are now more stringent water quality standards. So they're actually more stringent than is in the DEP handbook. So for new development, you have to a project has to remove 90% of all total suspended solids and 60% of all total phosphorus. And then it's a little less for redevelopment just because there's some more constraints, but still pretty high, especially since before it used to be to the maximum extent practicable. There's also a new requirement that stormwater treatment measures should be optimized to treat phosphorus and nitrogen. And there's also special provisions for commercial and industrial sites. BMPs have to have, stormwater treatment has to have shutdown and containment measures, that kind of thing. And then finally, there is a new offsite mitigation provision that allows, basically, if you have a redevelopment site where you just cannot meet your water quality performance standards, you can now use another nearby site to help meet those performance standards. So those are the main new things about the revisions. And hopefully, Leah, did you pass around the fact sheet and the handout also that we sent earlier? Hopefully you guys got a chance to read that. Oh, Leah, you're muted. Sorry.
Sorry. I believe I put them in Dropbox. If not, I can email them around.
Okay. Did anyone get a chance to read those beforehand or no?
I happen to be very familiar with MS4s, and actually, some of the questions I have to do with the pending updates to the Massachusetts DEP stormwater manual and so forth. So so that's kind of, these, I mean, obviously, it's we're mandated to come into alignment with the MS4 requirements for our local bylaw. That's fairly straightforward. I think it's how some of the other things kind of play into it. Some of the things that aren't addressed. MS4 is all about water quality. That's great. It's great that you got to do, green infrastructure. That's going to be aligned with the new stormwater manual, is going to require that too. I'm just wondering, as far as, again, this is for water quality more so than like the stormwater manual, which will have a lot of very interesting updates to, rainfall data, and it's not out for public comment yet. And so I know they're behind on that. But so some of the things is there anything that's coming here that's going to be in conflict with the DEP updates to the stormwater manual?
Yes. So actually, Lauren has been pretty closely following the DEP, what DEP has leaked about upcoming updates. So maybe she can speak to that a little more. I mean, the bottom line is there shouldn't be anything that contradicts. We ended up referring to this bylaw references the 2008 version of the handbook rather than the most recent handbook. And we did that on purpose so that basically we didn't want to reference the most recent version and then have the most recent version come out and somehow contradict this version or this bylaw. So right now, there's no contradictions that we see. There might be once the DEP handbook comes out, maybe we'll have to talk and revisit some things, but we tried to set it up so that there won't be.
Okay. Yeah, and just an FYI, I was actually on the DEP Stormwater Advisory Group and went through this. I was representing MACC, so really familiar with it. And it's one of those things where, yeah, it's we're the cart before the horse type of thing. It's unfortunate
Yeah,
that they're not
it's
lined up, but
unfortunate
it's
timing.
yeah, it is what it is. But it's really more about making sure that everything is doesn't have the conflicts and so forth, and that we meet the MS4. I mean, that's the bottom line.
And the other thing I will say, I also, just so you know, Lauren does have, I didn't mean to say like, finally I'm done. Lauren's going to talk a little more about implementation in a second. So I don't want to take over too much. But one thing I also would say is your definitions of development and redevelopment align with the DEP handbook, which I don't know if you realize, like if you heard that the EPA has a different definition of redevelopment than DEP. So basically, EPA treats an entire site as redevelopment if there's been any previous development on the site. And then you're held to those, 80-50 requirements instead of 90-60, whereas DEP talks about different portions of a site as development and redevelopment. And so because actually the DEP method is more stringent, your regulations use the DEP definition, and that covers you for the MS4 requirements, but also hopefully makes things more seamless in terms of meshing with DEP. So that's another thing in addition to the referencing of the 2008 handbook that we tried to do to mesh things.
Okay.
Lauren, do you have any
Yeah, no,
insight?
I think that was the biggest thing I was thinking of, was just the difference in definitions of new development and redevelopment. And so right now, you meet the requirements for the MS4 permit and you meet the requirements for DEP by using your definitions, but it's more, you're really erring on the side of being conservative, really, in terms of these regulations, because you need to meet both. So I am curious too, is DEP going to change their definitions of redevelopment and new development to match EPA's? I mean, doesn't sound like it, but that'd be great, because then it could be the same and they could just have one set of rules. So
yeah, I mean, I didn't get that out of what they presented. That's not one of the things they were looking to do. I mean, obviously what's driving the changes is that they can get into alignment with the EPA, but they definitely have some other things in there that are really way beyond, obviously, what the MS4 is about and so forth. And that's some of the more interesting things, not to mention all the MassDOT stuff, but that's a different topic. So, yeah.
Okay, well, should we let Lauren walk you through an example? And
I think that would be very good. Yep.
Okay. Awesome. And I can go through this implementation slide as well. So if you go next slide, Leah. So yeah, you can just go to the next one, actually. So this is, we thought through okay, what are the real changes we're going to be seeing based on these new regulations? Like what kind of applications are you guys going to be seeing? And what does it really mean? So, I mean, in general, you're going to see more stormwater treatment, especially for the redevelopment projects, because before, under the regulations, you would just need to do maximum extent practicable. And now you have this metric, the 80% TSS reduction and 50% TP reduction. So generally, you're just going to be seeing more stormwater treatment, more infiltration practices in general, because those get the best credit in terms of reduction in TSS and TP based on the MS4 permit. And you can get the most treatment in the less amount of area. So you'll probably be seeing more of that, where you can infiltrate. Obviously, there's site constraints for sure on certain sites that will make it impossible, but designers will probably start picking that up, that, oh, okay, infiltration will get me those 90% and 60% that I need to get to. More low impact development and green infrastructure. I mean, those BMPs are in the MS4 permit as getting credits. So generally, the designers are going to start seeing, oh, okay, well, maybe I can do like a vegetated filter strip, a pavement disconnection practice, and they can get these reductions that they are needing to get to. So you'll probably be seeing more of that. And you're going to have this additional set of pollutant reduction calculations to show they're complying with the MS4 permit. As we were just talking about, it's separate from the standard for water quality. That one's based on water quality volume to show you're meeting your 80% TSS. And now you have to use the EPA performance curves, which is a whole different methodology. And it's going to be just a separate set of calcs that you're going to have to, you'll be getting from applicants that you'll have to review or peer reviewers will have to review to show that they're meeting the 90% or the 60% or the 80 and 50. And the example I'll show you will kind of like step you guys through that just to see what this really looks like. And then, the potential for use for offsite mitigation, like that's going to be something new. If a property owner has another site, they can't meet these pollutant reductions on the site, their original site, they could say, hey, we'll just do stormwater treatment over here to meet the numbers. So we'll see how that pans out. I'm curious if DEP will provide guidance on offsite mitigation, since they have not really provided any guidance yet. So, and I guess just in general, these are the things that we're hoping to see, but that doesn't necessarily mean engineers are going to just start doing this right off the bat. It might be a little bit of a learning curve. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's not much of a change at the beginning of what you're getting in terms of applications, but this should be generally what you should be saying. So next slide, Leah. So we had this example project, and actually, Sandra, you might recognize this was one of the scenarios that DEP presented. It was like one of their Stormwater Advisory Committee meetings to show how the changes kind of played out. So I thought this was a good example just to pick, and just staying super high level, like we don't need to get into the weeds on this,
No,
but
not at all.
we'll keep it super simple. So this is an existing conditions, existing parcel that's forested. It's next to wetlands and it disturbs more than 40,000 square feet. So it needs the stormwater management permit and it needs to meet those pollutant reduction requirements in the MS4 permit. So next slide. So the developer, they want to put in this residential development. They've done their low impact development and implemented their green infrastructure. I mean, you can kind of even see like the layout of this. They've kind of they've protected the sensitive resources like the wetlands that are adjacent to the site. Minimizing impervious area as much as they can. And then if you click once, Leah, they have these infiltration trenches that they propose that infiltrate runoff from the rooftops, and also a rain garden at each driveway. So they really tried to keep it local to where the runoff was getting generated and infiltrating at those locations. So one more click. And then everything else that they couldn't treat, they put in these infiltration basins at the low points in the topography. And this is pretty much getting everything else and all the other runoff, which is from the road. So this is kind of like the general gist of this example. So if you go to the next slide. And then if we kind of zoom in and look at one location to get more detailed, if we take this infiltration basin and look at the drainage area to this one, if you click once. So this is like the drainage area here, it's going to be collecting everything within here, but the roofs and the driveways are already going to the trenches and the infiltration trenches and the rain garden. So it's really the remaining impervious area, which is the road, that needs to get treated by this infiltration basin. And so next slide. And so this is what one of the EPA performance curves looks like. And just to give some more background on this, these graphs and these data points are in the MS4 permit itself in Appendix F. It is attachment 3. So each BMP type and each soil type has its own curve like this. And, you know, you can see on the left, there's the percent pollutant reduction. And then on the bottom axis, the x-axis is the runoff depth from the impervious area that is getting treated. So, you know, for this specific example, if we wanted to show we're meeting our 90% TSS reduction and our 60% TP reduction, if you click once, you know, you start at the 90% on the left. If you're looking at TSS, you go to the TSS curve and then click one more time. Then you go straight down and you need to treat then 0.32 inches of runoff to get your 90% TSS reduction. So you check your TSS first, and or you know, you could do TP first, I guess too. But so now next to check TP, if you click once, you start at the 60% on the left, you go over to your TP line and click one more time, go down, and you need to actually treat 0.23 inches to get your 60% TP reduction. So, and then if you click one more time, this really is just meaning to get your 90% TSS and your 60% TP reductions, you need to provide a basin volume that infiltrates at least 0.32 inches of runoff depth over that impervious area. And that's because, you know, you need to show you're meeting both. So you just take the higher number to show that, and that volume, you know, you multiply the 0.32 inches by like the impervious area that's draining to it that needs to get treated. And that is the volume that you need to infiltrate. So that's generally how the curves work. I mean, you would do this on a site basis. Obviously, you want to do this at each BMP location, but then the overall site needs to meet that 90% TSS and 60% TP reduction. So you could be over on some BMPs if you wanted. You could be a little bit under, but as long as the entire site's meeting those numbers, then you'd be meeting the MS4 permit requirements. So next slide. So yeah, the key takeaways, yeah, I mean, we kind of went through the basic stormwater treatment's critical to improving local water body, water quality in the local water bodies. Your MS4 permit, it has its own pollutant load reductions that are required in addition to like the Mass DP stormwater standards, that's standard 4. And in general, you're going to be seeing more stormwater treatment, and you're going to be seeing it more in redevelopment projects. Those projects are going to be harder to meet sometimes now because there's constraints, and sometimes it'll be just really tricky to try and meet those reductions with the existing site layout that's there already. And of course, we want to keep encouraging low impact development and green infrastructure and infiltration in order to improve our stormwater runoff and comply with the MS4 permit. So those are the big takeaways. Yeah. And so now you can go to the next slide, Leah. That's just open for questions if we want to dive into some of these details even more, or kind of like hash out some of the nuances maybe that might have come up. But yeah, we're open for questions to answer anything you guys have, if you're wondering about. Yeah.
So let's kind of go around to the different commissioners and see if anyone's got, I mean, this is a lot of information. I mean, but let's just kind of go around. And Alicia, do you have any questions, or if there's anything else that might help out?
Can we get copies of the presentation? Is that somewhere in Dropbox? Leah, I can't hear you. I think you're muted.
It is in Dropbox, yes.
Okay. Then I think just having that to go through, I didn't look in this folder in Dropbox this evening. So I think having access to that presentation and being able to review it would be helpful. That's all I have.
And just so you know, there's also, so the 2 handouts that Leah put in Dropbox, there's a handout that kind of gives you background on the, you know, the bylaw revisions and what's in them, and was kind of intended as background for this meeting. And then there's another handout that's intended for applicants that I think you're going to put on the website that says, here's what you need to do when you apply. And so those are the 2 handouts that you should look for in the Dropbox, and those will also, I think, help in addition to the presentation.
Thank you.
Patrick, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions at this time. Thanks.
John?
No questions. I'll take a look at the PowerPoint. I just saw that it's sitting in Dropbox. I didn't see it before. I looked at it this morning quickly and I didn't see it in there. So I'll take a look.
So I just have one general questions. I mean, I'll skip over the validity of those curves and how they're kind of flawed at this point, because I think they probably overestimate for some and underestimates on others, but it has to do with the impervious cover, and we can actually talk a lot about that, but we won't. And I'm specifically talking about phosphorus removal, not so much the TSS. I haven't looked at those curves in a long time. Is there any guidance or new guidance out there on manufactured treatment systems other than, we used to have, New Jersey TARP and different like places. Is there anything that EPA is doing with treatment facilities instead of just the infiltration and kind of the green infrastructure?
That's a great question. Yeah, and we've talked about this as well, how, EPA and the MS4 permit, they don't provide any guidance on those proprietary devices. And so they technically don't get credit
Yeah, not
for
just
the MS4
guidance.
permit.
They
Yeah.
don't get credit because they're not in
Right.
the MS4 permit.
Right. And so I'm just looking at it from a practical standpoint, because whether it's an engineer just pulling off the shelf and some, rep saying that, hey, this, bioretention in a box gets you, 90%, phosphorus removal, something like that is I'm looking more from just a regulatory standpoint. So the EPA MS4 is what we're trying to get our bylaw to be aligned with, doesn't really recognize that. Should we have something in our bylaw that talks about that? Just because I don't want Leah or our peer reviewer getting stuck having to argue over and getting literally, reams of paper on testing information from XYZ, magic in a box type of stormwater treatment system.
So you luckily do already. So the section of the regulations on water quality performance standards says, you can meet these water quality, it says basically you need to meet the 90% reduction, 60% reduction, that kind of thing. And for new development, redevelopment, and then it says you can meet them by either infiltrating or retaining 1 inch or by using EPA's performance curves to show that you have, reduced the appropriate pollutants. And so, and it specifically says like use EPA's BAT tool, which essentially takes their curves from the MS4 permit and puts it into a tool, or you can just use Appendix F of the permit directly. But either way, the only curves that are there are for the BMPs that EPA credits, which doesn't include proprietary devices.
Okay. Yeah, and that was like my big thing is obviously there's going to be a steep learning curve. Just there's definitely a set of engineers that deal with this all the time, and they're going to come in with, the information pretty straightforward and everything's going to be covered. And then I think you have kind of a different, a different set of engineers that do a lot of single family and things like that they're used to the cookbook, and it's going to be a lot more difficult to get those done. And of course, we still have the minimum alteration, but even just a house nowadays can get up to the 40,000. So.
Right. And I think the other thing that I will just say, which is a little bit of a tangent, but EPA we've just on other projects have been speaking with EPA about whether the proprietary devices will ever be creditable, and they're not opposed to getting them credited one day. They just don't have the data right now that's not coming directly from the manufacturer, and they want data from a third party who's independent. And so we have actually talked with EPA about potentially trying to get some third party to evaluate certain devices. So there's a provision in the MS4 permit that says basically if you propose an approach for crediting and they approve it, that's fine. It's just the onus is on the permittee to propose the crediting approach, and that's a lot
Right.
of effort.
Yep.
But it might be coming, and we are actually working on getting certain on behalf of the Department of Conservation and Recreation, we are working to get certain measures creditable. And once we get them creditable, they will be in the next version of the MS4 permit. So they're open to adding to that list of possible creditable options. But right now, there's nothing proprietary in there.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, understood. I mean, I know that a lot of the previous third-party systems that were out there no longer exist, or they're whatever you want to call them. They're no longer doing it. So it's a little bit of a okay. Was there anything else in the bylaw that you saw when you were doing your review that should be updated? I mean, it's been a long time since I've gone through it in any detail.
I mean, I guess maybe I don't know if this is the best time to bring it up. We did see a couple things that we thought could use updates, but Leah had mentioned, and maybe we misunderstood, that things were like the regulations were kind of already passed, contingent on the bylaw
Yes,
itself
yes.
being passed.
I'm talking in the
Yeah.
future.
Okay.
I'm just
Yes.
looking if you basically had some
Yeah, we had
engineers.
some ideas, and we were thinking maybe, you know what, let's get these passed, let's meet the requirements of the MS4
Exactly.
permit,
I'm not.
and then
Yes.
let's talk about improvements next year to go a step further. One of the big things I think is elaborating a little bit on offsite mitigation details, because right now you allow offsite mitigation, but you don't elaborate on how it's allowed. And I think that the first project that comes up that where, you know, a redevelopment site can't meet their standards, their water quality standards on site, and they say, can I use an offsite mitigation to meet this? I think it can get it without any guidance beyond saying you're allowed to use offsite mitigation. You
There's
could
no
just be in
framework.
a weird gray area.
Yeah. There's no framework. And,
yeah. So that was one of the ideas that we were thinking of talking to you guys about. Yeah. And we were also thinking that maybe, you know, those revisions could be perfectly aligned with when the DEP handbook finally, or the DEP standards come out.
Stormwater standards. Yeah.
Yep. And so
again,
then we could do all those revisions together or something like that.
Like changing what we use for rainfall data when, you know, the whatever they're going to call it, the Atlas 14 plus or whatever the heck they're going to call it. You know, once that's updated, you know, I'm hesitant to do anything before then, because then we'll be changing it again, and that doesn't make sense. So yeah, no, I was just trying to get some free advice. That's all.
Yeah, no, we actually we've been piling up our free advice, but we figured, you know, we talked to Leah, we realized this is already kind of passed, and we're meeting the MS4 permit requirements. And so we thought, you know what, let's talk about this, but it makes sense to talk about it once we get these passed and buttoned up. So we definitely have some ideas up our sleeve that we were going to talk to Leah about. And yeah, offsite mitigation is a big one. That's probably the biggest one, to just develop more guidance on that.
Exactly. And just hoping that the DEP standard 4 does really align with the MS4 permit. It stinks. There's like 2 sets of calculations that have to be done now, which seems so silly. So hopefully they can align, and then you guys will only need to see 1 set of calculations for water quality. I mean, that would be ideal. So we'll kind of see how it all plays out next year.
Yeah. And I know, they were supposed to be out for comment already, and they're not. So I don't know exactly what's going on with it.
Yeah.
I do not have a crystal ball, that's for sure. So.
When it comes to DEP products coming out, I don't think anyone does.
So does anyone else on the commission, or Leah, do you have any other questions? I appreciate kind of going through this. I mean, this is something we have to do, and to be aligned with the MS4 is important. I also think we need to talk to our peer reviewer and get kind of straight on how we're going to do certain things.
We were going to ask about that. We wanted to make sure your peer, not just you all knew about these revisions, but that your peer reviewer knows about them.
Yeah. Yeah, Jeff is pretty good, but again, you know, it's just we need to check in and you know make sure that he's up on it and that there's an approach to what's acceptable and not. I think that's, I don't care who's out first under these new regs. It doesn't matter. It's going to be a process to get into a rhythm of how we review it and so forth. And there's going to be a lot of unhappy people. So yeah.
Yeah, and that fact sheet, make sure Jeff gets that fact sheet that's going to go on your website, because that basically says, hey, applicants, here's what is new and what you need to do. And so,
right.
It'd be helpful.
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge. So, all right. Anything else from anyone? Here's your opportunity to ask questions for free from, well, it's not for free, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we're happy to answer anything. No dumb questions.
So, okay. Yeah, I'm curious how it's all going to kind of roll out, and it's more so that we're going to have two sets of regulations going for a while in Grafton, because Concom does the stormwater. We're going to be dealing with two conflicting regulations for a while, which is going to be difficult. So
yeah,
does that sound like fun, everyone?
Yeah.
Is this is this, I'm assuming, going to bring a lot more people presenting at our meetings?
Good question. I'm not sure if that's going to happen. I think it's going to result in a prolonged peer review because you're going to have a lot of people not up to speed. And that's where the conversation with Jeff, our peer reviewer, is, you know, what his take on things are, just to make sure everyone's on the same page. It's still the same engineer that should, I mean, if you're, you know, professional engineer in Massachusetts, you should be able to do all this. This is not a lot of the things that are required in MS4. Many engineers are doing it already. This is not, you know, this is not rocket science in a sense. The biggest problem is it's two regulatory bodies that have two different
sets of
rules. Yeah,
right.
Rules. And so, you know, if you have great soils and you can infiltrate, you can cover everything. You have a C or D soil and you're trying to accomplish what the two different regs are, that's a challenge. That's a challenge.
Because we go down to the one meeting in the summer. So if, I mean, depending on when I'm sorry, I didn't.
July 1.
Yeah.
Right?
So
it's July 1.
Is this, if we start seeing, you know, huge agendas for those meetings in the summer, do we want to reevaluate our once a month
meeting? It's a great question. I have no idea, but it is a great question.
Yeah, because sometimes we'll have someone that maybe isn't clear on everything. They come, they present for 45 minutes. We continue anyway. Then the next meeting, it's another, if we're going to start seeing some of that just until this all gets straightened out, especially with the regulations conflicting, it might be something we just want to keep in the back of our minds to reevaluate as we get into this.
No, it's a very good point, and we should continue to have that. I mean, we also need to discuss, not tonight, but with the COVID emergency being lifted, we're all going to be seeing each other face to face shortly. And I don't know, and actually it would be the next meeting, right? When's our next meeting?
June 15. The town administrator's working through those details now, but we're already placing legal ads for applications for June 15, and they're written to say via Zoom. So that meeting, we might be stuck on Zoom because of the way those ads are already written.
Gotcha.
Again, it just came up today, and we're all trying to iron out the pieces.
Oh no, I get it. Yeah, I totally get it. I know that it's something that we'll all have to kind of figure out, and but yeah, we'll kind of tack that at a different point. So, all right. I don't think there's any other questions. I could sit here and talk stormwater all night, but I don't think everyone else on the commission want to do that. They definitely don't want to do that. So, anything else, Leah?
I just want to say thank you.
Together. Yeah, thanks for pulling this together.
No problem. Glad to help and answer questions and talk to you guys about it. So It's been a fun new thing for us. So it's been good.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks. Anything
All
else
right.
for tonight?
That is all I have.
Oh, wow. That means we have one more motion.
I will make a motion to close the meeting.
This is the happiest part of the meeting. Who has a second? You're on mute, Patrick. You're missing your opportunity here.
Second.
Oh, go ahead.
There we
Sean.
go. John got it.
He took too long. Second, third.
John,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Alicia.
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Hearing's closed. Thank you very much.